You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He is Brad Logan from Logan Digital Media. Inside the Rebels, Mac South Sports, basically anywhere in the state of Mississippi that you are following sports, Brad and Logan is there. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Stephen. Excited about maybe not so much about the bowl game and about the matchup against Duke, more or less just to see how, number one, how the outgoing players are going to play, how long they play, and then the news we'll get into with Logan Diggs at running back and to see if he participates and how much. So a lot of things going into the game. The actual game in and of itself, Vegas came out. This thing opened up at around 14.5. I think the last time I saw it, I think ESPN Bet actually had it at 17.5. So the line continues to move in Ole Miss's favor. So we'll see over the next couple of days if that changes.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how it goes. And, people need to expect there's going to be pitch counts in this game. And there should be, because like Jaxson Dart, Walter Nolan, Princely Mamiellen, they have the most important football game that they're going to play in 3 weeks. That's what it is. So that is what Ole Miss is going to be trying to do. Yes, sure, they want to play. Sure, they're excited about it. But we're talking about like generational wealth potentially here.
Yeah, and players like we saw, I think and you'll have to correct me on this, is it the East-West Shrine game and then the Reese's Senior Bowl? Those are two different games.
Yes.
I think if memory serves, Caden Prescorn's played in the East-West Shrine game, and then Jaxson Dart, Walter Nolan in the Reese's Senior Bowl. Did I do that right?
Right, and I think Princely as well.
Princely. And then Trey Harris, is he?
If he is healthy, I think he will.
Okay. So that's a lot of players. And I think is Pooh Paul going to be in a game that you know of?
I have not seen the announcement.
Okay.
I'm sure he's somewhere because he's too good of a player otherwise.
Yeah. So a lot of players are participating in postseason bowl games. This feels to me like and I'm not disparaging Duke whatsoever, and I'm not disparaging the Gator Bowl either, but it feels like an opportunity for kind of one of these Babe Ruth hat tips for Jaxson Dart, Walter Nolan, for Jared Ivey, JJ Pegues, and so many that pretty much put everything they had on the line for this year. I had a conversation with a friend that covers University of Arkansas, and I was really enjoying getting a chance to cover the AutoZone Liberty Bowl and visited a good while with them. Now Arkansas and Ole Miss are not in and of the same. But it's ironically, you look at Arkansas and you look at Ole Miss. Now, two different programs, kind of maybe going in two different directions, but a very similar situation. And what I mean by that is Arkansas finished 7-6. How important was the Liberty Bowl win? Was it important at all? And would you consider it a successful season, or was it a successful season for what you had leading into the season? And what I mean by that is, what are your feelings about Arkansas football right now versus what it was before the season? And there were so many different answers because so many people said, going into the season, they didn't feel Sam Pittman was the man for the job. They didn't feel like it was going to be a great year. And it wasn't a great year, but it was also a successful season by what they thought going into the season because they were 4-8 last year. What I mean by that is at the end of the Gator Bowl, if you and I talk, or if you talk to different people, or I talk to different, is it going to be a successful season for Ole Miss? And I think if they finish 10-3, which will be how many 10-win seasons? That's the most in program history under one coach. I think not named Johnny Vaught. And even then, they didn't play 10 games. What I'm saying is, this season, if they win on Saturday, or not Saturday, if they win on Thursday, it will be a success. And I've taken a lot of criticism for that. It will be a success, but that doesn't mean it will not be a disappointing year.
Yeah, I think what's going on is 2024 is a disappointing season. That's just the way it is. But the program, when you look at the program as a whole, that's when that 3-10 win season comes into play. So they are still exactly where Ole Miss fans want them to be. Just 2024 didn't meet the expectations that they publicly set. That's what happened.
I agree about that. I agree with that. And I think a lot of the fans are looking at this season was kind of push all your chips in the middle. And I think they did that. But the good news for Ole Miss fans is the collective is still being very, very good with their money. I think they're doing a really good job allocating, determining what positions of need that they have, and we can get into recruiting if you want to. But I think looking at the season as a whole, the fans are really linking on to Austin Simmons and how well he played against Georgia. And I've been one of the people that has beat the Austin Simmons drum. I think he could be a generational quarterback for Ole Miss. I really believe that. I think a dual threat quarterback and what he brings to the table. And I really hope Ole Miss is beating Duke 31-0 at half, so we can see what Austin Simmons looks like in more than one series, in much more of a game atmosphere. I feel like Ole Miss, if they can do what they need to do, they can treat this as a really high-level spring game. I think we've seen a lot of bowl games, and I hate to use the word insignificant. I really, really do. So I'm not going to say it's insignificant because so many things you can recruit off a 10-win season. You can recruit off of watching Jaxson Dart, watching Caden Lee get ready for the next year, letting Jordan Watkins go out on a high note, watching that Ole Miss defense led by Pete Golding play really well. You can build on that through the portal and through traditional recruiting, which, by the way, Lane Kiffin and staff traditionally recruited from a high school standpoint better than they have since the entire time they've been on campus. I think that's definitely something for Ole Miss to look forward to. So the bowl game is not insignificant in some ways. In some ways it is. Some ways it is a spring game. In other ways,
the result is not insignificant.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not. I think you can build on it. Do recruits look and see if you won your bowl game? I don't know. I think it's good for media guy fodder to say that you won 10 games yet again. It's good for graphics. You and I are in the graphic business. It's good for that. It's good to sell. But I think more than anything, it's going to be good to see, and we'll get to this, Logan Diggs, we'll see if he gets significant carries. Inside the Rebels learned yesterday that he would make his first appearance as a Rebel. I understand there are conflicting reports out there, but the sourcing on this from Inside the Rebels and the information they have obtained, it's very, very good that Logan Diggs, as of last night, is slated to play. He's been going a full go in practice. So we'll see. We'll see about him, and that's a room to where Ole Miss has whiffed some in the portal. They whiffed on a couple of running backs, and that's definitely a position Ole Miss needs to get at least 2 more running backs in the portal, and they've whiffed so far. So if Logan Diggs can play and he can show that he can be a component for next year's offense, that will definitely help the depth piece on this.
All right, when we come back, we will talk about that Logan Diggs situation. We'll catch everybody up to what happened and how all of this is going on real quick. But first, I do want to let you know about Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That is definitely happening to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to take them down. It is like having a personal assistant for your finances, really. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year or next year, as it will appear in a day. Rocket Money has over 5 million users, and they've saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 per year when you use all of the app's premium features. For me, the best feature is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I just don't want to use anymore. And I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for the future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. So cancel those unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. So Inside the Rebels put out a tweet yesterday that Logan Diggs would likely be making his debut in this Gator Bowl. Actually, I think the tweet was he would be making his debut in the Gator Bowl. And this is coming off, just so everybody knows, off of a tweet that came off of the official Ole Miss account that just showed Jaxson Dart throwing a pass. But everybody realized that it was one of those play action passes. The running back was wearing number 22. That is Logan Diggs. So that kind of started all of this off and going. Listen, Brad, I am not expecting Logan Diggs to be a finished product. I think an ACL injury is a 18-month injury. You can play after 9 months, but you're not completely back to yourself until 18 months. But what I want to see from Logan Diggs in this game, whether it be 5 carries, 10 carries, if he plays in the game, I want to see him flash. I want to see a vision. I want to see something that says, okay, he looks like the guy. And I think Ole Miss needs to see this as well, because with a month of the transfer portal window still out there, it might be determining whether you need one running back or 2.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to see him in game action. I mean, we've heard about him. We've heard he's practiced, and the sourcing that was given to Inside the Rebels yesterday kind of backed up what we saw in the B-roll film that was provided by the Gator Bowl. And, the media was allowed access to the B-roll, which that's basically just stock footage of practice that the Gator Bowl has provided. And everyone kind of spotted that, and that led to the conversation. And then the sourcing on this believes very strongly that as of yesterday, he would be a component in this offense on Thursday. We'll see. I think he will get carries. I don't think there'll be significant carries. I think everyone would like to see Ulysses Bentley kind of have an opportunity to shine. We'll see Ulysses Bentley, a big play against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, and has been a big question mark this year. The running back room has been a question mark this year. We saw Micah Davis, who played running back down in Florida in that game that Ole Miss lost, that it should have won. Micah Davis has since entered the transfer portal. The running back I'm looking at, Steven, now he's going to be a true freshman, and it's probably this is another topic for another day, and I get all that. But it feels like that Ole Miss, this is just Brad talking. This is nobody else talking. It feels like Ole Miss is gearing up for the 26th season. It feels like that Ole Miss is gearing up for this next year to have Austin Simmons get substantial play, A.J. Maddox be some form of a component of the offense. But it feels like that they're gearing up. That means Shakai Mills-Knight will be a true sophomore, the running back. Caleb Cunningham would be a true sophomore. And it feels like they're really kind of recruiting around that 26 season, similar to the way they did this 24 season. And I think that's kind of what fans are kind of looking for in the recruiting. If you'll follow the portal and you follow the high school recruiting, it's setting up to be the 26th season is the one in which Ole Miss is going to be really, really good. I think Ole Miss is going to be good next year with Austin Simmons, but I think they're going to be really good in 26. But if you look at 25, I think 25, Steven, starts, to me, in large part, the second half of the Gator Bowl, because I think Ole Miss should have mounted a pretty good lead by then. Then we'll see a lot of the newer players come in. But at running back, Shakai Mills-Knight next year, I don't know how much of a player he'll be, but in 26, obviously, I expect a lot. If you can get Diggs to be kind of the linchpin of the offense at running back next year, I think that will be big. But I think probably the second team running back, maybe the third team running back, they're not on campus yet, because I really believe Ole Miss is going to get 2 portal running backs, and I think they will receive significant carries next year too.
Yeah, I compare this Ole Miss team in 2025 to what Tennessee was a year ago. Now, Tennessee had the dominant front seven. That's not what I'm talking about. But Tennessee used a Citrus Bowl with a backup quarterback, built the momentum on that all the way through, and they rode that all the way through that playoff appearance. Yeah. Ole Miss is going to be on the fringe as a playoff possible team in 2025. They're not going to be favored to make it. They're not going to be penciled in by people. But just like Tennessee and Oklahoma, if you want the other side of the coin, they're going to be talked about as teams that could make it, but we don't expect them to. I think that's the land that Ole Miss is going to live in 2025.
Yeah, the schedule sets up really nice. I mean, I like the schedule for next year. It sets up good. Look, and you'll hear me do this all off season, and until I'm proven wrong, we'll see. But I'm a huge Austin Simmons fan. The moment that Ole Miss signed him, to what I've seen, the limited ability that we've been able to see in practice and in games, he just looks the part. There's a baseball aspect that I guess we could get in at some point, but I don't know. He's had a little bit of an issue with a health issue with the upper body, so that's something to think about. But his future is at quarterback, I believe. And, if he continues to evolve and grow as much as he grew from last offseason to this offseason to next season, he is going to be an incredibly dynamic quarterback for Ole Miss. Jaxson Dart's a runner. We didn't see Jaxson run really at all this year or the second half or the bottom third of last year because of his ankle. And he's still dealing with that ankle injury.
Yeah.
So he has not been the dual threat that he has been earlier in his career. Austin Simmons absolutely is a dual threat quarterback. And I'm not going to say who I think he looks like. We'll allow that folks to make their own determination on that. But he is a dual threat quarterback, and he is really, really good.
Yeah, and everybody needs to see the high school recruiting class that got brought in. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of a Florida flavor to this high school recruiting class. Those are all guys that grew up playing with Austin Simmons because he reclassified 2 years. This would have been the group of players. So like Keon Young and Samari Reed and Winston Watkins, all of those guys, there were ties.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to watch. And before we go today, I'm going to flip like I normally do sometimes. I'm going to flip this conversation on the other end and become the interviewee. No, the interviewer. You spent some time at the Under Armour game. Tell me a little bit about what you saw, who kind of stood out to you. And the main thing that everybody's looking at is I received a lot of comments on your interview with Tristan Keys, the talented 5-star wide receiver out of Hattiesburg, the number one player in Mississippi, the number one wide receiver in the country. So who are some players that kind of jumped out at you, and what did you kind of learn from an Ole Miss standpoint from down at the Under Armour game?
I think if Deuce Gerald was not 5'11" and he was 6'3" or 6'4", he would be the number one player in America. Seriously.
Davern Gerald's his son, by the way.
Yes.
Center for Jevin Sneed in the 08 team, I believe.
Yeah, a really, really good player. I saw him working the one-on-ones and the little bit of work on their day one last night. Really good. Tristan Keys, that dude looks smooth. He is similar to Caleb Cunningham, honestly. Okay. He is a guy that made very difficult things look easy as an underclassman. Yeah. I can see all the hype that is going to build up on this wide receiver. It just the way it looked. Keon Young was a little bit nervous the first night out there.
Yeah.
I think Cortez Thomas, he's a football player in all the same ways that Sontaran Perkins is a football player. He's a guy that was running things on the opening night when he walked out there. Very good guy. And other thing that I noticed from this Under Armour game is the number of agents that were at this game were probably up 300%. They were everywhere. You could not throw a rock without hitting an agent. And that was weird. So that's pretty cool. I saw Kevin Otis, who did okay on the defensive line. There's not much contact in these all-star events as well. And I did not see the defensive lineman from Picayune that was supposed to be there as well. So I didn't see him.
Yeah,
so
he's another 4-star in Mississippi. Did you get any kind of vibe at all with Tristan Keys, with anybody that he's kind of feeling or whatever? Because the interview, he gave the right answers, and you could tell he's pretty polished. But I didn't get a read on any particular school that's standing out.
The read that I got is he just doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a clue where he's going to be. He hasn't even started the process yet. He spoke to me that he's absolutely going to visit and have Ole Miss in the conversation for his services. But the national guys, this is the way that this works. Whenever you go to these events like the Under Armour game, these kids do not talk very much. They just don't. You ask a question and they give you 17 words of an answer, and these analysts turn it into 300 words of a story. And it makes it seem like it might be a little bit more definite than it is. And what it is, just because somebody, if you talk so much about that player, obviously you know a whole bunch about it, but he actually is coming off a 17-word quote. So we'll see exactly what it looks like, but it's way too early for Tristan Keys at this point. I do think that Tennessee and Texas A&M and all of them are going to be in it because they have more money than everybody. That's why they're going to be in it. But I do think that Lane Kiffin and the air raid offense, he specifically talked about the offense at Ole Miss and what they do.
I think we're looking in regards to Mississippi. This will be, I hate to say the best ever, but it will be one of the best ever classes in 26 in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Right now, in regards to 247, they've got as many 4-stars, I think, as they've had in quite a while. I think Tristan Keys is a 5-star. I don't know about on 3, but I know that 247 has him as a 5-star. So yeah, it's a loaded class, and I think it was a lot of great content. I encourage all of you to go to Steven's Twitter/X handle. There are a ton of interviews and a lot of great content and work that he did at that Under Armour game, because that was, I think you were maybe the only person that was there that has an Ole Miss affiliation.
Yeah, the Under Armour game is my treat every year. I enjoy going there. I get to kind of talk to people. Yeah. And with the underclassmen this year, it was really great. Like Deuce Gerald's, I will add this. I asked him specifically, what's the one thing you need to see from Ole Miss before you would commit to Ole Miss? What do you want to find out? And his answer to me was telling. He said he wants to see them play high school players more. He doesn't want transfer portal players to be necessarily recruited over. So this is what I think, because I do think Ole Miss is very in on Deuce Gerald's as far as what they want to do. I don't know that Ole Miss is going to sign a 3 technique out of the transfer portal this class.
I will say this. I'll say this. Now, Ole Miss is portal king, transfer portal, all that. They're as close now as they ever have been to being back to somewhat of a traditional recruiting offense/defense. I think with Lane and the way that he has recruited the high school ranks this year versus the previous 3 or 4 years, night and day. So do I think they'll play high school players on top of transfer portal players? I don't know about that, but I do know that they will play many more high school players than they have before, because they're recruiting high school players better and more than they have the last couple of years.
And Jam Brown was a freshman All-American. Xavion Harris is a high school guy.
Yeah.
And William Eccles, like every interior defensive lineman that Ole Miss has right now is pretty much high school players.
Yeah. Cam Franklin, another one.
Yeah.
So those players are, and Eccles and Franklin are 2 players that I think a lot of people are going to be looking for in the bowl game to see how much they play, because I think if history proves and Ole Miss does well in the first half, Walter Nolan will not take another snap. Jared Ivey will not take another snap. I think Jared Ivey, by the way, playing in a postseason bowl game. Pegues probably will go the whole game, because that's J.J. Pegues. I mean, he's the mayor of Oxford. But I expect to see a lot of the younger players play, specifically in the second half, if the score goes like I think it should.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brad and Logan from Inside the Rebels, Logan Digital Media, the Red and Blue Crew podcast. Check that out as well. Brad is getting ready to head down to Jacksonville. Safe travels, buddy.
Thank you very much. Look forward to bringing everybody all the content down to Jacksonville. We've got a nice bank of sponsors that have allowed us to travel down to the Gator Bowl, and always appreciate being part of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. And Happy New Year to everybody. Appreciate all the comments. I mean, I get comments every day about people saying, man, I saw you the other day. I said, was it on the Locked On podcast? Ole Miss podcast with Stephen Willis. They said, yeah, that was it. So I'm sure your numbers are great because I get noticed a lot by coming on the podcast with you. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, we love having you on the show. You make it great, man. And be safe heading down to Jacksonville, and we'll talk to you later, bud.